modern-day city of Safety Harbor, with its 17,000 residents, has retained its small-town charm despite being located in Tampa Bay, a region of over 3 million inhabitants. Safety Harbor today has become a tourist destination, well known for its quaint houses, walkable downtown, magnificent grand oak trees, mineral springs, the historic Safety Harbor Resort and Spa, and the gorgeous waterfront location on Old Tampa Bay. Although Safety Harbor is a small city, it has played an important role in the history of the Tampa Bay region and the entire state of Florida. For thousands of years, many people have influenced Safety Harbor's history, including the Native Americans, the Spanish explorers, the early pioneers, the developers of the mineral springs, the citrus industry, and the modern tourist industry. But in order to tell Safety Harbor's extensive history, we need to travel back in time, thousands of years, and explore the history of the original natives that inhabited this land. Archaeological evidence shows that people first arrived on the Gulf Coast of Florida almost 20,000 years ago. These people were nomadic, which means that they constantly traveled from place to place. They would move to places based on the food availability and the animal migration. The Native Americans that settled here benefited from the fresh water of the mineral springs and the abundant seafood from the Tampa Bay. Evidence of early inhabitants has been found by local archaeologists. They found ancient pottery, bones, arrowhead, tools, and shell mounds. Around 900 AD, the Tocobaga Native Americans began to dominate the Tampa Bay region. They lived here in lots of small villages close to the edge of the water. It is believed that the Tocobaga capital was located in present-day Philippi Park. The Temple Mound, built by the Tocobaga, still exists in Philippi Park and is the largest Native American mound in Tampa Bay. In the early 1500s, the lives of the Tocobaga people began to dramatically change as the Spanish explorers arrived on the west coast of Florida. The Spanish explorers embarked on numerous missions into Florida, searching for treasure, conquering the native inhabitants, and claiming new land for the King and Queen of Spain. In the 16th century, Spanish explorers including Panfilo de Narvaez and Hernando de Soto visited the west coast of Florida and the Tampa Bay region, but we don't know exactly where they landed. Legend has it that Safety Harbor's natural mineral springs were discovered and named Espiritu Santo Springs by Hernando de Soto. However, this claim is not verified. But we do know that in 1567, Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez de Avilés sailed to the west coast, seeking a waterway across Florida. Menendez initially made contact with the powerful Calusa tribe, who lived south of Tampa Bay. The Calusa were the Tocobaga's major rival for power. Menendez managed to negotiate a treaty between the two warring tribes. This Calusa-Tocobaga Treaty is believed to be the first European-brokered peace treaty between warring indigenous tribes in all of America. Menendez's expedition here in the 1500s was also the last known contact between Spanish explorers and the Tocobaga. Unfortunately, the Spanish conquistadors' military conflicts, combined with the spread of European diseases, decimated the Tocobaga population. With the Native Americans now gone, the U.S. government encouraged settlers to move into the area. Odette Philippi, also pronounced Ode Philippe, is widely acknowledged as the first non-native person to permanently settle in Pinellas County. Philippi is Safety Harbor's most famous and inventive settler. Philippi was most likely born in the French colony of Saint-Domingue, now known as Haiti. Philippi came to Safety Harbor in 1842 at the end of the Second Seminole War. During this time, the U.S. government had passed the Armed Occupation Act and was giving land grants in order to encourage settlers to populate the Florida Peninsula. Philippi was given a land grant and established his plantation and named it St. Helena in modern-day Philippi Park. At his homestead, Philippi planted a variety of citrus and other fruit products. Most notably, he's credited with introducing grapefruit to the entire state of Florida. Though life was hard for the early settlers and pioneers, they did get to enjoy some of the local benefits of Safety Harbor. The waters of Espiritu Santo Springs have been bubbling for a millennia in Safety Harbor. This seemingly unlimited supply of fresh water is undoubtedly a major factor attracting people to this area. In the 1850s, Colonel W.J. Bailey became the first owner of the springs. His purchase of the mineral springs had a huge impact on the development of Safety Harbor, especially as a spa town. The contribution of the mineral springs grew as word spread about its miraculous healing power. The most famous of these stories was that of Jesse Green, a farmer paralyzed from the waist down. According to legend, Jesse drank and bathed in the mineral springs, which miraculously healed his paralysis. Around 1890, either due to the legend of Jesse Green or due to the name Dr. Green, the physician at Espiritu Santo Springs facility who helped spread the legend of Jesse Green, the community became known as Green Springs. With a bustling tourist industry brought in by the springs, everything seemed great for Safety Harbor. In 1945, Dr. Salem Baranoff purchased the mineral springs and sanatorium. Dr. Baranoff's vision was for people to bathe in the mineral springs and drink the water to restore their health. The modern Safety Harbor spa we see today was born with Baranoff's dream. Though the mineral springs were a huge reason for people to come to Safety Harbor, the citrus industry helped Safety Harbor grow. Safety Harbor's citrus industry began with Odette Philippi in the mid-1800s. Philippi planted many types of citrus plants, and he generously shared the seeds, plants, and his knowledge of citrus trees. Other early settlers soon began cultivating citrus groves in the area, and the citrus industry soon began to become one of the staples of Safety Harbor's economy. However, in the late 1800s, numerous freezes and pest infestations weakened the citrus industry in Safety Harbor. With the demise of the citrus industry, new opportunities arose for growth and development in Safety Harbor. And as Safety Harbor developed further, the people needed easy transportation, such as trains. In 1888, the first railroad arrived in the Pinellas Peninsula. However, this railroad only passed through Tarpon Springs and ended in St. Petersburg. The railroad bypassed Safety Harbor up until the early 20th century. This helped keep Safety Harbor a small town. But in 1914, the train finally arrived in Safety Harbor and a train depot was built. These trains brought tourists to the popular mineral springs and allowed farmers to ship their citrus and vegetable crops to northern markets. However, by the mid-1900s, the use of both planes and interstate highways caused the use of trains to decline. And in 1963, despite many protests, passenger trains came to an end, and 2 years later, the train depot was demolished. The Safety Harbor community was referred to by locals as Green Springs for decades. This was a charming name, but the community decided to become incorporated as a city in 1917 and changed the name. The post office was the first to use the name Safety Harbor to avoid confusion with the northern town of Green Cove Springs. The name Safety Harbor was chosen because the area was commonly referred to by sailors as a safe harbor. With the newly incorporated city, things were looking up for Safety Harbor. But tragedy would strike less than 3 months later. The Great Fire of 1917 occurred in the Green Springs Inn, located at the corner of Main Street and Philippi Parkway. At around midnight on September 1st, gunshots rang out, indicating a fire. But this newly formed city did not yet have a fire department. Local residents rushed out of their homes and formed a bucket brigade, determined to put out the fire. The city called on nearby communities for help, and the Tampa Fire Department responded. They arrived just in time to help the bucket brigade, and saved the city's first post office. The next year brought better news for Safety Harbor. In 1918, World War I had just ended, and a huge financial boom began in America. More and more visitors arrived in Florida for vacation, to buy new homes, and to invest their money. This meant further commercial and residential development for Safety Harbor. This Florida land boom was driven by greed and speculation. Many were looking for quick profit, which proved to be too risky. By 1926, the Florida land boom came to an end. This would result in a steep decline in real estate prices, and construction activity would cease. Many banks weakened and then collapsed. A few years later, in 1929, the stock market crashed, plunging the nation into the Great Depression. The 1930s would be a difficult time for Safety Harbor and the entire nation. Many people lost their homes to foreclosure, and many businesses failed. The local population declined, and most of the remaining people depended on federal relief programs. The city's finances deteriorated so much that in 1937, Safety Harbor became the first community in the United States to file for bankruptcy. The bankruptcy debts were so huge that it took the city 33 years to pay it off in full. But before the debt was paid off, another tragedy would strike the nation on December 7, 1941, with Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. The next day, Congress declared war, and the United States entered World War II. Of Safety Harbor's 700 residents, approximately 144 men and women served in the U.S. Armed Forces to support the war effort. After World War II, conditions in Safety Harbor were slow to change. During the mid-20th century, Safety Harbor remained a small city that was strained by its debt obligations. However, the situation slowly began to improve. Positive changes began as active city residents stepped forward to improve the city's quality of life. They built new public parks and a library. And in 1948, Philippi Park was established in Safety Harbor as Pinellas County's first park. Its success helped inspire the city to create many additional parks. Today, Safety Harbor is a popular tourist destination with a vibrant artistic community. The local artists have created mosaics on library walls, poetry on public benches, and murals on the side of buildings. Safety Harbor has become a city recognized for hosting popular festivals in the historic downtown and at the waterfront park overlooking the bay. Over the centuries, Safety Harbor has played an important role in the history of Tampa Bay and the entire state of Florida. Safety Harbor is constantly developing and changing as a diverse mix of people continue to arrive and bring new life and new ideas to this bustling community. And it's certain that Safety Harbor's future is destined to be as interesting and colorful as its unique past.